Hello and welcome to this short tutorial um, on how to make roads in Autodesk Revit. Now Autodesk Revit 2015 is shipping with a wonderful suite of new site design tools, and I would encourage everybody to get on board with those and understand exactly how they work. For the purpose of this tutorial, I'll be working with Revit 2014 because that's all I have installed at home. One note I would make about the new site design tools in 2015, they are still quite onerous, so any of you out there looking for some kind of solution to the extreme slowness of large format topographical surfaces in Revit, I think you can go on waiting and praying for that to happen, as the new site design tools are quite slow, regardless of what Autodesk says. So, for the purposes of this tutorial, as I said, I'm going to quickly show you how to make a very simple set of road geometries which correspond to a topographical surface. So we'll still be using the topographical surface to control the elevations of our roads, but we will be using massing tools and roof/wall appendages set to massing surfaces to create our roads. So let me just get into this, and hopefully this will help you all out. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a topographical surface. Now I'm going to assume that everybody watching this knows what they're doing when it comes to terrain, so I'm not going to get into it too much. I've created a standard Revit environment here. I haven't used any fancy templates. I've just got a simple 3D view, and I've marked out a square of ground just to give myself a scale. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a simple topographical surface. I'm going to change the elevation just to give me something to work with. I'm just setting points at random just to give myself, like I say, a starting point. So you can see this is a very simple terrain modeler. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new site family. So if I jump in here to create new family, scroll down on my generic family list, and jump into metric site. And what I'm going to create is I'm going to create a site family that will glue itself to the terrain that I just created. So every time I place one of these instances, it's going to host itself onto the onto the terrain surface, and once I change the terrain, the family will go with it. So first I'm just going to do a quick solution to an extrusion, and I'm going to flip it into a 3D view. So I'm going to give it to me. I need to make a 3D view. Close all those hidden things in the background. So you can see I've created a very simple extruded cylinder. And I'm going to jump into a front view, and I'm going to make a line hosted on its reference level. There's the line. Then I'm going to parameterize its height, and this will give me the ability to vary the height of this stick, let's say this little helper, within the Revit environment. So I'm just going to quickly parameterize that, give it a name, 1 array. Okay. I'm not going to give that a name right now. I'm just going to load it into my project. Yep. Okay, so you can see once it loads in, here it is floating, and I can make lots of these. Everywhere. And you will see if you orbit around your terrain, they are stuck to the terrain. And just to prove it to you naysayers in the audience, if I change one of these points, look at that, bang, all of my little sticks follow the terrain. So I'm just going to undo that because I don't want to give myself added complexity for what I'm going to do next. Now, the best way really to work this is to create a grid, just to give myself something to work with. So I'm just going to make a model line. Just to give myself some kind of control. This is absolutely not necessary, but I'm just being all architecty and designery because I know how much everyone likes grids. I'm just going to pause right here and create a grid and not bore the socks off. So, okay, I've made a grid, and what I'm going to proceed to do now is I'm going to locate a whole bunch of my little site points that I just created onto the points of that grid. So as I generate the road, I've got something to follow. I mean, you could have an AutoCAD plan or something to go underneath all of this, whatever. But I'm just going to arbitrarily create a road surface here and sketch it on later. But I shouldn't say the bad word AutoCAD. Never use. It's terrible. Just draw everything in Revit. Believe me, it will be much quicker in the long run. Okay, I'm just going to go seek out my little site family. So if I scroll down here to site, that's family 2. I didn't name it anything. Right click, create instance. So even though this is locking on to intersection of these points, it will be hosted onto the surface. There is nothing in this God's green earth that it will make it host to your green line because it is a site family. And if you don't know anything about families, then why are you watching this? Go and learn about family creation. Okay, so you'll notice I'm not being too careful about where it goes. My grid is literally just for guidance. You could be really pedantic and yeah, we'll set them all to the intersections of all these lines, and that's going to do something for us, but I'm really not sure why you would bother, etc, 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 etc. Okay, so let me just turn on consistent colors, cancel out of that. So you can see I've now got a grid of little soldiers, and you'll see that they have appended themselves to the terrain. Okay. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a mass. Now, I should point out that you could have done everything I've just done there in mass mode, but it doesn't really matter one way or the other. You can control it all within mass mode or half and half like I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to create a reference line. Generally, I don't use model lines for very much because as soon as you do an extrusion from said model line is gone. So I use everything in reference line mode. Yeah, look at them. Look at those, they're great. Okay, so you'll notice that I'm in reference spline mode and I've got draw on face clicked. So this little boy is going to host onto the points of all of my little terrain chappies. Sorry, site families, not terrain chappies. Etc, etc. So there's probably some of you in the audience who are going, oh yeah, I see what he's doing. How very, very clever. So, shut up. Why does that exist? Autodesk, why does that exist? May cause inaccuracies. Jesus, this is freaking 2014. Get on with it. 1, 2, 3. Go make tea if you want. Oh, almost there, almost there, almost there. Okay, so we made a whole bunch of these hosted splines. And we're going to create a form. Now, I'll just warn you, if you do sometimes try to create something like this, you will get your oldie change loft order. What you might find is Revit, for reasons unknown, reasons known only to itself, will select these out of order or out of sync, and you'll end up with a kind of a ribbon folded around itself. The way to avoid that is to create this as a solid. I'm not going to do it now because I'm limited for time, but obviously you clone these splines down, connect them up as sections, and then loft them in that direction. That generally is more stable. I think what happens is Revit gets a bit confused about these as just splines. But I won't labor the point, it's worked this time, so I'm not going to complain. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to displace that, or sorry, I shouldn't use Max terminology. I'm going to move the hosted point here. Let's see, hosted point. I'm going to change this normalized curve parameter to something that I can adjust. So I'm just going to give that a point position, just so I can adjust where it is in the world outside of this family. For those of you who don't know how, well, for those of you who are now confused, I'm just going to say that that just means I can push it. If I set that to 0, I can push it right down on top of the surface. So essentially what I've created is I've created a surface, a mass surface that relates itself to the topographical surface. So if I change the topographical surface, so does my, call it my tissue paper that sits on top of all my little masses. Okay, so I'm just going to finish that. Oh no, can change only mesh geometry. Balls. That's really going to interfere with human civilization. So, you'll see it says point position here. I'm just going to bring that so that it doesn't do this crazy intersecting thing. Bring it a little bit more. Obviously, the more of these points you put in, the greater accuracy of relationship between the mass and the topography. Right now I've probably got too few, because obviously if I set that to 0, oh no, it's gonna mess over the whole thing. But what we're going to do next, which is the cool part, is to append a roof to that. Now you could make your roof like the depth of the road, which would take up that confusion. You know, so I've brought it away from that. So what I could do is I could place a very thick roof or wall on top of that mass, which would make up the difference, if that's making any sense whatsoever. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So architecture, roof my face, create roof. Yay! Okay, so I know what some of you are saying. Oh, he's just made a roof. Oh, what the fuck are we going to do with that? That's no use. For those of you who are not familiar with the next part, this might come as a bit of a surprise. Up here, there's a button called Create Parts. What this does in the real world is, as the little video here is demonstrating, is converts Revit wall families, Revit roof families into bits. Or parts, to use the correct terminology, in order to specify them properly and put them into specific schedules, etc., etc. What we're going to use it for is we're going to use it to chop this sucker up. So I'm going to click Create Parts, then I'm going to click Divide Parts. Oh, and hit Edit Sketch, and we're in sketch mode. Look at this. Now we can go and draw roads. Hooray. So I'm just going to arbitrarily make some roads here. 10 meters is good old road. And I'm going to do something very complicated that looks nothing like a road, because there are people out there saying, oh, you can't do curvy this, you can't do curvy that, and Revit it all falls over. Guess what? It doesn't. Revit is in possession of some pretty extreme modeling engines, and there is almost nothing it cannot do. But its API obviously always wants to be a building, so freeform modeling has to take the form of little workarounds like this. Okay, so now that I've done my sketch, I hit OK. Chug, 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 chug. It comes up as a green line. And hit OK. Chug, 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 chug. OK, then, and you'll see it's cut out my road. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this, like this, and I'm going to press that button there. Ta-da! A road. Now we can do other cool things with this, because now we can select that and hit, divide parts again. Now we're into this little bit. And now what we can do is go very, very quick. Let's do a median strip in a hurry, John. Because it's YouTube and I don't have that much time and people are getting bored. Chug, 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 chug. Now you will notice that it has created a centerpiece. Yay! Look at that. Isn't that amazing? So what you can do beyond this point is obviously change the materials. If you come over here to the properties bar, you'll see material by original. Turn that off. Let's give it a different material. Think, chug, chug. I don't really have anything green. Let's make it GRF, whatever that is. Okay, and then we can come in here, select this guy, turn off material by original, like that. It's copper. It's green copper. Okay, there we go. Chug, chug. Oh, look at that. A road with a median strip. That follows a terrain. So, obviously there's more to know about the divide and conquer end of things. But for the purpose of this tutorial, I hope I've shown you something cool, and you guys can find other ways into making this even cooler. One last little thing, if you are pedantic and you want these things to be of a different height, Autodesk have provided us this wonderful little tool called Displace Elements, which is more or less been created for the purposes of doing exploded diagrams. Some of you might have seen me doing exploded diagrams. I sometimes use this. What you'll find though is that you can move it in that direction. Yeah, and this is only this is only for this particular view. This will not affect it in other views, but if this is for the purposes of really creating maybe context roads as opposed to design roads, thus you might just want this for visualization purposes. Obviously, those of you in the audience now thinking, oh, I could cut this out and I could make that a curve and I could change that profile and I could, do all this other cool stuff and do lines down the middle. I think one of the benefits of this is that you can actually sketch whatever you want in any way, shape or form, which is useful at concept level. And then obviously after this point, using the new Revit site design tools in Revit 2015, which I mentioned earlier, to actually make some of this real and then come up with actual road families that correspond to it. But I hope this is exceptionally helpful. If I reset everything, you'll see, obviously if I came in here and I changed this topography and then selected my my roof, sorry, it's the mask, but if I selected my roof, and I just hit update the face, obviously this will all change again. So a very, very useful concept tool for those of you modeling landscape or roads in a conceptual sense. And that's all for now. Thanks for watching. I hope you find this useful. Bye bye.